I think it's high time the Inspector General of Police is sent to the north to go and restore power with this terrorist group. The insecurity situation in the northern part of the country is getting worse day by day. This was one of the reasons why we said you should vote wisely. If you had voted wisely, the insecurity ravaging the north would have been worse as this. If you have voted wisely, the hunger ravaging the country would have been as worse as this. Now it has been reported, and a new terrorist group has emerged in Sokoto that is now instilling fear in people of Sokoto State.
Members of a newly active terror group operating in Sokoto and Kebbi State, known as Lakurawa, are running riots. On Friday, the group attacked Mera town in Auje local government area of Kebbi State, killing about 15 people. Now, according to sources, the group struck as residents were preparing for Jumat prayers on Friday afternoon and went away with about 100 cattle. Meanwhile, the state deputy governor and the emir of Argungu, Samala Mera, visited the town to offer condolences to the families of the deceased. The deputy governor affirmed that the governor has pledged to ensure protection of the people against further threats from the armed group. All right, BKO, on Friday I heard you saying that this terrorist group, they are not new.
They are not.
But is this group not turning into another Boko Haram?
You see, if you watched that program yesterday, I said they were now active in 5 local governments of Sokoto State. They were originally active in just 2, Udu and Tanganza. But now they've spread their tentacles to 3 more local governments. I also said that in Kebbi, they are active in 2 local governments, Auji and Auji and parts of Argungu. It was in Auji that they struck, killing 15 persons and stealing 100, estimated to be 100 cattle. Originally, these pastoralists who came from Mali were acting like people opposed to the antics of bandits. They were actually waging a war against bandits. So the people took to them. They will come into a mosque and say, "You preacher, what you are preaching is wrong. This is not the way Islam, this does not align with the dictates of the Islamic faith." They will tell the preacher to stop. In some cases, they will remove the imam. They had areas that they controlled, especially in Gudu. So invariably, the people, their influence began to grow, and the people's fear is what has now been confirmed. The people fear that they may begin to work with bandits.
Wow.
So that is what we are seeing now. They decided to lie low at some point because the former governor of Sokoto State, Tambua, reached out to them and told them, "Look, you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that." So they decided to lie low. No one living in those areas, Ilela, Silame, Gudu, Tanganza, in Sokoto, will say that,
they don't know
that these guys are new. No. I'm surprised that the armed forces are calling them a new terrorist group. They are not new. As far back as 2018, we ran a story here at TVC about their activities. What we can say is, at this time, there appears to be a resurgence of the activities. And some soldiers were killed about 2-3 weeks ago, including an officer. They were the ones behind the killing. So just hearing this week that there's a new terrorist group, no, it's not new. It's not new. The military needs to work with people in these communities so that they can get more information.
Intelligence.
Yes, because they are not new. They've been around. The people have lived with them. You see, there are some communities where you have little or no government presence, and it's helping bandits to
form a strong
to gain a foothold in those communities where there's little or no government presence. where you find it difficult to access some communities because the roads are terrible. I've spoken before about a place in Katsina State that I visited after an attack by bandits. And for a journey that normally shouldn't be more than 20, 25 minutes, we were on the road for more than 2 hours.
Wow.
Terrible road. No network. You cannot communicate once you're in that area. Just like in some parts of Borno State. Once you are there, forget about communicating.
Wow.
With the outside
world.
You are on your own. You can't be reached. All of this is help these bandits because they can't raise alarm. Victims can't raise alarm. It takes a long while. The Chief of Defense Staff told me that the attack on those school children in Kaduna, that they didn't get to know until the next day. That attack when those secondary schools, that they didn't get to know until the next day. So how do you then deal with the situation? They will have taken them so far before you know that this thing happened. How do you then launch a counter attack? It's usually too late. That's why our people are literally at the mercy of these guys. I've been told that the military, that they are heading in that direction. There's a need to appreciate the fact that we are dealing with a threat that is expanding. Today, when you go to the northeast, especially Borno State, the threat that Boko Haram constituted has been literally taken away. They do not operate like they used to operate, just occasionally that they will operate. Whereas they were very active in those days, and they were even taking over army bases. In fact, the army was so terrified that they had to now create what they call super camps. Super camps meant that they will take weapons from this camp, from this base, from that base, and form a big base. But as we were doing that, we were yielding ground.
Okay, for the...
Yes, that was the unfortunate thing that happened with the creation of super camps. Because we didn't bring new weapons for super camps, we were taking weapons from some smaller military bases to make this base
fortified.
Yes, but in spite of that, they still overran some super camps. But today, that threat, the kind of threat that they constituted, has been taken away, and they began to surrender. That was when Christopher Musa was theater commander. Now he's the
Chief of Defense
CDS. You know, a lot of those guys have moved to the North Central. You can see the attack on train passengers was by Boko Haram. They owned up to it. The attack on the Brigade of Guards in Kaduna, in Abuja, during which they killed a good number of our soldiers, our elite soldiers, was by Boko Haram. So they moved to the North Central, they moved to the Northwest, because the threat, the attacks on them and the Northeast was unremitting.
Exactly.
With the Tucanos deployed to that area.
So they had to move to another place.
Yes. You know, one of the things was the Americans said you can only use Tucanos on terrorists. So we had to come up with a law. So to use Tucano in places where
there will be casualties.
Where you cannot actually say these are terrorists was difficult. So for a long time, we just concentrated the use of the Tucanos in the Northeast. Now, the threats are literally gone. If they exist, not significant. But we must realize that a good number of those guys have moved away from the Northeast.
So
now, yes, and they have weapons, they have experience, they also have some level of intelligence gathering mechanism. So the threats that these guys constitute has to be taken away.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, if we do not do that with the huge number of bandit leaders in the Northwest, these guys now working with them, doing the things that those bandits are doing, we are in trouble. We are in trouble. And they were originally pastoralists from Mali, so they know the terrain. They've been around for some time, they understand the terrain. And I've been asking the question, when they rustle cattle, where do they sell this cattle? You've got to find a way.
That's a question that needs answers.
Some governors, I think it was Cardinal governor back then and the Zamfara governor, they shut cattle markets. They took some steps. They shut down the DSN, what was it called? Network.
Okay.
You know, people could not use their phones. But at the end of the day, what did we achieve? Nothing. Because the threat remains.
All right, Adewale, let's talk about intelligence now, because is it not shocking that a terrorist group has been operating, in the country for 6 years? How come our intelligence did not nip this in the bud? For 6 years, Adewale.
I believe that one thing about intelligence is gathering intelligence and enforcement of the rudiments of information that you have. The strength of any country lay on its intelligence. Not just to have intelligence to deal with terrorists, but to even prevent them from taking action, arresting them, catching them in the bud at the rudimentary stage of their plans. I think maybe what the defense headquarters is assuming is that, yes, this organization is not new, but the method they are applying now, varies from the methods that other terrorists have been using. Because Sokoto is a very strategic town in terms of history, in terms of location. Remember, it was in this place that Uthman Danfodio launched his jihad on February 21, 1804. And that jihad did not just spread to a larger part of Nigeria, but the entire West African countries, up to Cote d'Ivoire, up to Niger. In Niger today, we have no fewer than 13 million people who have outside extraction. So the dominion of Sokoto Caliphate is not just in Sokoto State. It spreads to no fewer than about 8 countries in West Africa. And that is why we should feel deeply concerned that if a terrorist group can have stronghold in Sokoto, it is a very bad message for us, because it shows that the possibility of spreading to those traditional territories, originally controlled by the caliphate, is there. We should also be worried that, yes, we have ethnic militia in Sokoto State. We have pastoral terrorists who are armed and all that. But this group is raising the question of political power. That's what makes it to even be more dangerous. We have armed bandits and who are stealing and all that. But these people are setting up, taking over communities and organizing them in a state manner, collecting taxes, even setting up intelligence, arresting people, profiling them. So when a terrorist group is raising the issue of political power, it shows that it's not just, it has a lot of very deadly abuse.
I thought I heard that in every local government in the country, there's one DSS person there.
Yes.
To gather intel. Now they've been there for 6 years.
There is
no failure of intelligence.
There is no doubt. I believe that the intelligence community in Nigeria, they are doing a very wonderful job. But you need the political will of the leadership to be able to, implement and carry out the quantum information that you have to ensure that you work on that kind of information. The DSS, we are some of the most best trained intelligence officers. But they are not going to implement these decisions. There is a need for political will, political leadership.
Political will is there.
Yeah, because when information is given to the president of a country, it's not the DSS that will implement. There are some you can implement, but there are some that you need the guidance of the president of that country to be able to say, okay, do this and do that. These are the people you need the governors,
the local government.
So there is a need for political will. It's not that the DSS is not doing its own work. But we must also understand that what we are dealing with in Sokoto has local, sub-regional, international dimension. The crisis in Sudan is having a spillover in what we are seeing in Sokoto State. The crisis in Libya, which happened in 2011, where people begin to have access to arms and all that. And also, the fact of the matter is that the alliance between Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger with Russia is also creating hostile Western interests who are backing terrorist groups in order to ensure they destabilize these three countries because of their fight with Russia. You know, when the terrorists operated in Mali recently, and they killed a lot of people, they were waving Ukrainian flag. So that's why I expect Nigeria to take not just regional action, but also international action by taking this case to the UN. I would have expected ECOWAS to have challenged Ukraine, for instance. They were waving Ukrainian flag, saying that, look, we collect our arms from Ukraine and others. So I think there is a conscious attempt by some Western countries to collaborate with terrorist organizations in West Africa in order to destabilize the government in power, just because of the global rivalry between the West and the East. So the Nigerian government must be conscious of this and take decisive actions in that area.
Okay, let's look at the local governments and traditional rulers. I know local governments, sometimes they have their security outfits. Should the local governments and traditional be held accountable here in this regard? Or they are helpless?
You see, in the troubled states of northern Nigeria,
yes,
the structures of the local governments do not really exist.
Oh, really?
In Katsina, many of the local government chairmen in the frontline local governments do not even live in
their local.
They fled to the state capital. It is the same thing that is happening in the northeast. There are some local governments where only 2 communities are safe. And those 2 communities may not necessarily even be the capital of the local government. So people, district heads, you expect that district heads will be able to play some role in the area of security. But a lot of the district heads have actually even fled their communities because these bandits do not brook any form of insolence.
Okay.
So they will kill, they murder district heads at will. So those district heads have relocated to the state capital. And it's the same thing in Sokoto, where a local government is not safe, for example. You do not expect that the local government will run efficiently. The district heads that you can use to at least maintain sanity in their domains, they fled to the state capital. So who will do the job? A lot of those communities people have even fled those communities and left them to bandits, you know. So until we are able to restore some level of civil authority in those communities, we cannot expect the local governments to run efficiently. Elections in Borno State today, especially in Borno North, are localized in maybe Monguno, for example, Monguno town. All of them from other local government, they will all
be there,
go to Monguno to go and vote because their own local governments are not safe. And in this Monguno that we are talking about, outside of the local government headquarters, which is Monguno, the communities around it are not safe. People are not even living in them. I've said it before that the hometown of the governor is originally, that's Governor Bono, is originally from Monguno local government. The name Zulum is the name of his community. Since 2014, nobody has lived in the governor's community. I'm saying this, he's probably watching me because it's the truth. So how do you then expect people to live normally when they can't return to their ancestral?
Just when it seems like the war against Boko Haram terrorists and bandits is being won, the defense headquarters confirms the emergence of another terror group, Lakurawa, whose members are running riots in Kebbi and Sokoto states. But the acting chief of army staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, has ordered troops to crush the new terror group, which is reportedly inducing youths in the states into its fold. Now, General Oluyede is already hitting the ground running by visiting 8th Division of the Nigerian Army, Sokoto, and tasked troops to launch manhunts for members of Lakurawa. The emergence of the group is linked to political instability in Mali and Niger Republic, which has fueled the spread of the extremist elements into Nigeria. Now let's hear from the Army Chief.
Now, the issue is, how do we react to those challenges? So one of the reasons why I'm here is to charge up my soldiers to brace up to challenge, and that we shall do. My charge to the community people is for them to support us, because the fact is that Nigeria Army belongs to all Nigerians. And if we don't get their support, we can't succeed. And if we don't succeed, that means Nigeria itself will not be secured. And we need Nigeria to be secured so that we can have economic prosperity.
Okay, now let's bring the conversation home, Mayor. Now that the troops have launched, the army launched manhunts on the Lakurawa, are you hopeful, or is this coming a bit too late?
Yes, I think so. But let me start by saying that I commend our security forces for the sacrifice they are making every day, laying their lives on the ground for us to be safe. And they've done very well, especially in the Northeast in the fight against terrorism. But what is happening in Sokoto and Kebbi is a failure of intelligence.
Intelligence?
Yes, an indictment on our armed forces.
Okay.
Because when you look at the Northeast, when we were battling Boko Haram, it became complex when ISIS sponsored the swap, and it became complicated. After the loss of the caliphate, ISIS soldiers, especially the foreign soldiers, went in other parts of the world, and especially in Africa, in Mali, in Guinea, in Niger, in Chad, and in Somalia. So ISWAP is very strong, and it took a lot of efforts for us to be able to even contain both ISWAP and Boko Haram in the Northeast.
Okay.
Why I said it's an indictment on our forces is that how can they allow ISIS to develop another cell in Sokoto and Kebbi when it would have been easier to take them on when they just got there, because they needed communal support, they will need logistics, they will need to do recruitment to get fighters. So at that stage, it will be relatively easier for our armed forces to be able to take them on. Now you allow them to form a cell, a working cell in those states.
I know. I thought they thought they had good intention.
You see, that's what I'm saying. That is
they dropped the ball in.
That's what I say. It's a failure of intelligence, because that is what you are supposed to do. If you are proactive, it becomes easier for you to contain them. What you are doing now will be very. I'm not awful, because yes, it is a good thing to say, oh,
launch manhunts,
stick them out and crush them. I hope they will succeed, because you see, it is very difficult to fight terrorism, because it's not a conventional war that you know that this is where the soldiers are, and then this is how we are going to approach that battle. These are people who are constantly on the move, and because of the affiliation to ISIS, they are well funded. Because what created problem, initially Boko Haram was trying to depend on petty crime to be able to raise money, kidnappings and all that. But when ISWAP came, they have money from ISIS, because if you remember, ISIS was running a caliphate in northern Syria and northern Iraq before they were defeated. So they had a lot of money, and they could fund these people. So when you now have people who can easily get arms from Libya, you understand, and when the heat is too much, they'll move to another state or move to another country, lie low for some time and come back. But be that as it may, it is important. It is good that the army chief wants to solve the problem now. I hope they'll be able to do that, because that is the same problem. That is the same thing they said about bandits. And then banditry became a way of life now in the north. So it is important to know that they have a big battle on their hands.
On their hands. Mayor Kimberly talked about intelligence, but isn't it shocking that a terrorist group has been operating in our country for the past how many years? And I think 6 years. Is this failure of intelligence that they could not even nip this in the bud?
Yeah, I totally agree with Mayor. We took our eyes off the ball, as it were. But the surprising thing is that some of us totally disagree with the defense headquarters when they came up. When the spokesperson of the defense headquarters came out to say, oh, we have a new terrorist group. There's nothing new about them. We'll be talking about them on this program since 2018 or thereabouts.
Yeah, BKO talked about it.
Yes.
He talked about it.
I've been on several several of this of our program. We have BKO. In fact, I should even recommend that they call BKO if they don't have enough intelligence to call BKO. Yes, because BKO seems to have more intelligence than even our military.
Yeah, he has vast knowledge, yes.
He's well versed on issues like this. They might just take him as a civilian, but the fact is that he has enough evidence and intelligence on his own part, where people give him information and the rest of them. So I think that they should try to tap on some of this intelligence or whatever that BKO, because there's practically no part of this country you talk about, especially on issues like this that BKO. But we have been talking about this issue since 2018. So how come that the military didn't do the needful? And it's now that we're coming out. They took their eyes off the ball. That's one. And the second part, I also agree with Mayor, is that on the part of intelligence, the greatest problem we're having within our security architecture is intelligence gathering. They have always faltered. When we talk, they say, you are civilians, what do you know? We know, of course.
How intelligent is our intelligence?
That is what we ask. Because that is the second one. The third one is that there is no intersecurity agency cooperation. Everybody is doing his own thing. The Army is doing their own thing. Air Force is doing their thing. The Navy is doing their own thing. The police is doing their own thing. Everybody wants to hold on to information. There was a time that was it the Minister of Defense or Chief of Defense Staff, one of those, not the current ones, came out to say that the problem is having an issue because the various security agencies are not working.
Yeah, under barriers.
And I remember vividly, was it last year or last 2 years? I can't remember now, where, may God bless his soul, I attended the national annual event of the Nigerian Army in Ibadan. And we were told that the current, with the late former chief of staff that died, that for the first time, we're having all the security chiefs from the same class. Okay. Do you understand? So that makes it easier for them to be able to cooperate and interchange. The only person the only senior was the Chief of Defense Staff, General Chris Musa, who is a year older than them. So what I would have thought and believe is that by now, they would have gotten enough information. But you know the problem we're having? These guys have been recruiting the natives. They've been inducing them with money. And for goodness sake, that is why we are raising the issue when we had this end bad governance, this thing in this. Because if you look at the level of poverty and out of school children in the north, the out of school children in the north, all this Amajeri system that is going on in the north, you'll be shocked. I was in Bauchi, I was in Kanu, I was in Kaduna, which was about a few years ago. For goodness sake, if you get to the streets and see the number of these children on the streets on a daily basis doing nothing, is an opportunity for anybody to recruit. And the former president, Obasanjo, just some weeks back, came out to say that in 10 years' time, if we don't do anything about the out-of-school children in the north, that we are sitting on a time bomb. So I hope and I believe, I want to be optimistic, that the Nigerian Army, as they are, will be able to do something to be able to nip this in. But the fact remains, just as Mayor said, this is not a conventional war. If it's a conventional war, for goodness, we would have dealt with this issue after Nigeria was in Liberia. We saw what we do. We were in Sierra Leone. You saw the way we performed. We've been to, even before I was born, I was told that we were in Congo and all those other states. Nigerian Army performed, and when we go on peace mission, the Nigerian military performed. But this is an asymmetric war, which is why it is very So what I think is that enough intelligence should be used, especially because it's not just having the might and have the equipment. You can have the equipment if you don't have the necessary intelligence reports to be able to do your job, and you also need the cooperation of all the other agencies and all the people within this area to give us the necessary information to deal with it, or else we're in deep problem.
All right, Mayor, in finding a solution, what should be the role of the traditional rulers, the local government, in the affected areas to track these criminals?
Yeah, they are expected to perform a very important role. Basically because every crime is local. Sure. So you cannot know the terrain more than the people who are from there. They know themselves. They know those who live there. Exactly. So when a foreigner comes in, they know who the foreigner is. You understand? So we are going to start from there. They should be able to assist government in identifying those who are not from that area. Exactly. Who are living amongst them and try to profile them. That is the first step. The second step is that we have to mobilize the people in these communities in a way that they will be able to defend themselves. Okay. I'm not saying that they will be the people to confront terrorists, no. But they must be in a position to defend themselves in the first instance. Okay. And then security forces can now come in and take on those people. Because part of the problem is that when these people come like that, it becomes a fait accompli. People don't resist whatever they want to do. Yes. And then they start doing what they like. And then they get entrenched, and it's difficult to now remove them.
But Mayor, I asked this question from BKO yesterday, that should the local government and the traditional be also held accountable? Because these people have been there for about 6 years.
Of course, yes.
They should be held accountable.
Of course, yes. That's what I'm saying, that because the traditional rulers are, give or take, part of government. They govern over a particular domain. Yes. So it is their duty to be able to see that, look, there are some foreigners in our midst that we cannot account for. Exactly. Then you inform government. If you inform government will be able to know, you will know their activities. Sure. It's not now that you will now call them terrorists and say, oh, there are some terrorists amongst us.
After 6 years.
There must have been things that they were doing that qualified them to be terrorists. So when they started doing those things, I expected the traditional ruler and the government of that subnational level to be able to do the needful by informing security agencies that, oh, we have this security challenge in this particular area. And then, like I said, it will have been much, much easier to handle, especially a group that is affiliated to ISIS. Because ISIS, not only do they have a lot of money, they have foreign fighters who are mercenaries who just move from one theater of war to another. So it is difficult for them it is easier for them to be able to now get people who can train people, who can supply them equipment, who can even join them in this war. Okay. So it makes it more difficult to be able to win that war.
You talked about the issue of poverty, out of school children. Let's talk about poverty. What can be done to reduce that trend? If you remember, past governments, we tried NAPEP, we tried UWIN in the fight against poverty. But all of these things have not worked.
Let me start by saying, first and foremost, in terms of solution, we have to trace the funding of this group. That is the duty of our security agencies and the government.
The CBN should be brought in.
We should be able to trace where they are getting their money from. That's what America does, and other countries of the world. And you see that once you cut off the head, the body finds the
exactly.
So where are they getting money from, and through what channel? They might not go through this your conventional because I've heard that part of how they get their funding is through all this is Bitcoin or whatever they call it.
Okay, cryptocurrencies.
Those cryptocurrencies that you cannot be able to trace. I've heard that in the past. That's one. Then the second thing is he talked about the community. You're talking about the community. But we must be able to build confidence within the communities to be able to volunteer information. Okay. Because most often than not, people are very afraid to volunteer information within our communities because they believe that those information will be traced back to them. So and the possibility,
the trust.
There's a trust deficit. There's always a trust deficit between our security agencies and the people. So that in itself is also a very, very big factor. So if people get to know that, oh, if I make this call and talk about this, that call cannot be, and that is why I said time and time again, you travel to UK or United States or wherever, and you are just walking somewhere in a place that you are not known, and you're just surprised that out of nowhere the police just drive you and just come and say, where are you?
Yeah.
Even in a place like Rwanda.
Let me tell you, Rwanda. Do you know the reason? There is a 19-year-old woman sitting somewhere, and you just think that she was just knitting or just this thing. She has seen you. She doesn't know this face, and she just make a call directly and just call the police. Yeah, there's somebody within my area that I don't know of. That call cannot be traced to that woman, but the police will arrive, and the security agencies, I will say, okay, sorry, please, sir, can you identify yourself? That is trust, because she believed that those information that have been given to security agents, and that is why they easily solve crimes in those crimes. And we're having that issue now. Talking about poverty, for goodness sake, I've said it. First and foremost thing is out of school children. Why is it that this kind of terrorism is not happening in the South? We know what will happen in the South. Most of kidnapping and the rest of them. But banditry, you can hardly see it in this thing. Seeing children engaging them. I saw a video a few days ago where the military killed some of these terrorists. You'll be shocked that some of them are just about 13 years.
Oh dear.
Carrying heavy guns. You'll be shocked. That is one. The issue of also poverty, where people cannot eat, where parents cannot train their children, where children are finding it difficult to eat.
They sound vulnerable.
Then they are very, very vulnerable. If somebody gives them 1,000 naira, that is big money and can be able to engage them.
I agree.
They don't only use them for combat, they also use them for surveillance. That is why you see that a situation where our security agencies have mobilized to go and confront them. Before they get there, they've gotten the information. And then the last one is technology. Are we really investing in technology? If we are we using it? Yeah. Our drones, most fight now doesn't need you physically getting there.
Yeah, a drone.
Have you seen what Israel has done with Iraq and others? You don't see American Israeli soldiers there. They send drone, calculate the place, measure the place, and they send it it lands there and destroy everything. Precision. So we need to, until we start investing in this kind of a thing, it goes beyond just carrying gun and just working with it.
This is highly appalling. I don't know what the president is doing about this. I don't know what the security department is doing about it. The Inspector General of Police is only concerned with political matters, how minors can be detained, how they can arrest people who have no business with security threats across the country, are the only people the Inspector General of Police after. I think it's hard time the Inspector General of Police is sent to the north to go and restore power with the terrorist group. It is not only within the body of civilians, within the civilian society, that the Inspector General of Police will be raising shoulder and be behaving as if it's Alpha and Omega. You should go to the north and restore power with those guys. Northerners, you need to shine your eye. The next time we'll tell you to vote wisely, you will know why we are telling you to vote wisely. This is a lesson for you guys. You understand? Vote wisely. I know some people with the verse. Now anytime we say vote wisely, some people with the verse.